Hey everybody, we'll get started in just a sec. All right, can you guys actually see that?
Yep.
Excellent. Decided to share my screen today. Of course, that means I can't see the chat. Hold on a sec. Where's the chat? All right, give people just one more minute. If you want to add your name to the agenda, the link should be in the chat, but let me paste it again in case you joined after I pasted it last time. There we go. All right, it is 4 past the hour. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Let's see, on the agenda today, not a whole lot of big things to talk about. I just wanted to highlight some of the changes that we recently made to the doc, just so people are aware of them. First off is the changes to the what is serverless section. We decided to go ahead and accept Sarah's edits and Euron's suggestion to add the word usually when it came to the cost perspective things. So please go ahead and take a look at that section and see if there are any additional, hopefully minor tweaks that may be necessary. It seemed pretty good to me when I was reading it earlier. We also, as we talked about in the last call, moved, I think it was Appendix A, which listed out all the various projects, open source projects, and possible services that are out there to a spreadsheet. And so here's the spreadsheet itself. You should be able to see that. And added a link to it from the document in the conclusion section, making mention of the fact that we're expecting this thing to be a living, breathing document, and something that people can add to over time as things change. But that way we don't have to worry about updating the document, the white paper itself as things change. We can just update the spreadsheet. Okay, any questions on those two things so far? All right, Kathy had some edits to the conclusion section talking about portable workflows. I accepted that, and it was merged into the other section that talked about looking at some portability or harmonization around definition of functions, and now obviously function workflows are now mixed into there since they're tightly related. It seemed like it made sense to put them in both spots, or put both those things in one spot. The one question I personally had as I was reviewing the document was, in Sarah's edits, she started talking about how a serverless computing platform may provide one or both of two different things. Let me show you this section in particular I'm concerned about. Okay, right here. It says serverless platform may provide one or both of the following: functions as a service, obviously, and then backend as a service. Now, what jumped out at me is that the way it's worded implies that a serverless computing platform could be just a set of backend as a services, however you want to say it. Basically, it doesn't have to provide function as a service. Is that consistent with everybody else's point of view? Because in my mind, I always thought serverless implied hosting things for end users, not just, oh, here's a set of services that are available to you, and how they're implemented is a different issue. I want to get other people's point of view on there because you guys are more experts in this stuff than I am.
Yeah, I know this was one of the earlier definitions, right? So there was the idea of the compute, the functions as a service platform, and then creating, like, for example, a single page app that had no server logic on it, except it called out things like auth 0 and backing data stores and stuff like that. So I know that we had gone back and forth about this in the past. So it's definitely like a concept out there. I don't know if we want to revisit it, but it does have a history and a probably reason for her adding this.
So the way you described it, is that, were you basically just describing a backend as a service only system?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, if everybody else feels that that's okay to keep it as is, then I'm okay with that. It just jumped out at me as feeling a little funky, but I want to make sure everybody's okay with it. Any other comments on that? Okay, we'll keep it as is then. That's fine. Hold on. All right. You guys are awfully quiet today. I'm not sure what to make of that. Is Chris on the call? Chris Anichek? No, okay. I was going to get with him later. The reason I wanted to talk to him is I wasn't sure if we should keep things like that spreadsheet that we just created in a single person's Google account, or whether the CNCF has a Google account that maybe we should host these things under. That way it's not tied to a single person where they may delete it by mistake one day. Actually, Dan, you're on the call. Maybe you have some comment on that.
I am. And it's fine if you just want to transfer it to me and Chris. But the way Google Docs doesn't officially let an organization own it. And so we're sort of happy to be the official owners of it, and then can give you write permission on it. I was just going to mention earlier, I'm not sure if folks have seen it, but the software conformance working group has been keeping this spreadsheet of all known Kubernetes offerings. And it actually, Joseph Jacks originally created it, and it's kind of insane now. So it's up to 67. Wow. I'll just paste it into the chat window. But I did want to compliment you on the idea of using a spreadsheet. I think is generally much smarter.
All right. Well, it was actually Brian Grant's idea, I think, so give him credit.
Okay. I suspect we're going to find the list gets longer, is my only point. I think JJ's first version is like, I think there's like 8 or 9 of these Kubernetes implementations out there.
Right.
We also talked about moving it into GitHub and being able to handle it through PRs and such, but spreadsheet works for now.
Yeah, whichever you guys want is fine with us.
Yeah, that's going to be the next topic on the agenda. Was, I know at one point we talked about moving the white paper itself into GitHub as individual markdown documents so people can issue PRs against it. What wasn't clear to me was whether we want to do the spreadsheet over there as well, because in my experience, markdown tables aren't really the most user-friendly. But I wanted to get some opinions on that one.
I think it should be consistent with what the storage working group is doing, which is the spreadsheet in Google Docs. And I think that there's definitely a richer way to include info than doing Markdown. But a compromise might be as you associate, possible changes to the spreadsheet with a GitHub repo that you log issues against.
So let's split those into two. Are you obviously you were saying keep the spreadsheet as a spreadsheet as opposed to a Markdown. What about the white paper itself? Do people want to see that as a Markdown document or keep it as a Google Doc?
My preference would be with the TOC print, like we did with the TOC principles, that the quote official version of it would be in Markdown. But I have an editor that I'd like to have one more kind of detailed round of edits on it. And I do want to be clear that just because I'm going to be paying this person doesn't mean you need to adopt their edits. That every edit they make is a suggestion. But if you guys would be comfortable giving it another week or two to take in these edits, and then hopefully we could say, I don't know if you want to call it 1.0 or something, because it's certainly not a forever thing. But then I'd love to convert it to Markdown and have it be officially published.
Okay. What do other people think? Any comments, preferences?
I think probably give it another 1 or 2 weeks, for everyone to go through this again.
Well, right. Okay. So let's separate out the discussion. Later in the agenda, I do talk about actually the very next item. I said, look, let's go through a review process. I was just talking longer term. Once we think we're done with this thing, do we want to keep it as a Google Doc or shift it over to Markdown? Just the white paper itself, not the spreadsheet. So Dan, your preference is Markdown. Anybody else have a preference?
So Markdown means putting it into GitHub, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, I think that would be a better way.
Okay. So then based upon what I'm hearing is the current proposal is eventually move it into Markdown, but keep the Google spreadsheet as is. Any objection to that?
I think that makes sense. But in terms of readability, it's a longer document than I guess the TOC documents. Is there a way to make it readable, like generate GitHub pages from it, or put it in CNCF.io, or so even if the source is Markdown, is in GitHub, is there another place there people would read it and find it?
That's an interesting point. So I was kind of assuming that as we uploaded it, we would not upload it as one gigantic Markdown. We'd have individual Markdowns per section, so that, for example, the TOC and abstract would be one section. So you should be able to traverse from page to page and not be swamped with a 34-page single Markdown document. Would that help at all, Dan?
Well, yeah, and CNCF has resources now that we're happy to. Yeah, sorry, I think you meant the other Dan. But I was just going to say we have resources to format it nicely, so it doesn't have to be just this incredibly plain thing. But my other comment to you is, even if it officially lives on GitHub, CNCF is going to be actively promoting the document. So both linking it from our main page, doing press announcement, probably a press release around it, featuring it on the blog, etc. So I don't think we're just going to sort of drop it and say, oh, now it's public and it's done. I mean, I think we want to really promote the work that's been done here.
Okay, well, tell you what, since I suspect no matter what format we choose right now, it's probably going to be something that we change over time as we look at it and say, wait a minute, we actually didn't like that, we're going to morph it. So maybe we should defer the exact structure in terms of one gigantic doc versus multiple, or I'm sorry, GitHub pages versus just Markdown documents until later. But for right now, I think what I'm hearing is general consensus that we will move it to Markdown, but keep the spreadsheet as a Google Doc. And we'll do that after we go through the reviews and basically right before we claim we're done. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, so we're going to keep this as a Google Doc for some time, right?
Yeah, just for the review process, yes, because it's easier to do that. Yeah,
I think that makes sense. Maybe keep it for quite some time, and then later, when we really think we are done, we'll move it to the GitHub.
Okay, cool. In that case, let's talk about the review cycle itself. As I was writing up the agenda, I decided to take an aggressive approach and give us 1 more week for review. But is that sufficient, or do people want more than 1 week for review?
I think we will need more, especially if there are other people who, do not have a chance to join this meeting, frequently.
Okay, 2 weeks enough?
I would actually ask Dan with respect to wanting to have the editor do some edits to this, what's the likelihood of that? I'd prefer for us to review something closer to the final.
Yeah, so I'm hoping for the next week, at 10 days on the outside to get these detailed edits done. But then my hesitation is, are you going to be incredibly unhappy with the edits and need months to back them out? I don't think so. I'm not looking to have an editor come in to rewrite the substance of it.
Yeah, I just don't want us to drive to a deadline of, say, next week to have final review and then have more edits and have to do further review. So
great. So let's say Chris and I've spoken to Chris about this. He and I are both intent on having this an outside edit process. So can we say 10 days for those edits to be made, and they'll all be done as suggestions, and then I guess a week after that for this working group to sign off on them? That is essentially to push back on any that you're concerned about, you feel like change the meaning, etc.
Okay, so the reason I'm hesitating is because 10 days is kind of an awkward number of days. 7 days would be great, because then we could review again next week. But 10 days means next week we're still waiting for the edits to finish. I
don't quite have him committed yet, but let's aim for a week.
Okay, I would prefer that, and I'd rather aim for a week and then slip out.
Great.
Okay,
Sold.
cool. Excellent. So let's do that. So Dan's going to have his editor look for a week. Okay, then working group kicks in for review. And are we looking at approximately 2 weeks for us, or just 1 week for us? What do people want to put down as a 10 start?
I think 2 weeks, give everyone a chance to go through it.
Okay. Does that sound fair to people? So we're looking at a total of 3 weeks for review. Does that sound fair?
Yeah. So I have a question. Currently, who can edit this document? If like original, I know, there are a bunch of authors, right, who can edit the document. But now looks like not, right?
I don't. You mean actually accept the edits? That I'd have to double check. Hold on a second. Let's take a look.
But I think the point is that the document's probably far enough along that nobody should be making changes without sign off.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, Dan. I would agree with that. At this point, I'd rather not have anybody, including myself or Ken or anybody, just blindly make changes. I'd rather have everything go through review. Otherwise, things might slip in that people may vehemently disagree with. So I'd like to request that everybody go through making suggestions as opposed to straight edits, even if you have the access to do so. So hold on a minute. Okay, so we have a plan now for 3-week review cycle, and then we're going to present to the TOC after that, assuming everything goes well with the reviews and there aren't any major changes. I guess one thing I should mention is that while Kathy, thank you very much, did make changes to the conclusion section, I'm still a little nervous that there haven't been other suggestions. And maybe everybody's okay with it, but I just remind people again to please look at that conclusion section, because that's probably the most important part of it, because that's going to be our next steps, our recommendation for next steps. So please look at that sooner rather than later if you get a chance. And I think that's it in terms of talking about the white paper itself. Are there other topics that people can think of that I'm forgetting?
I guess I just, I'm sorry. I just had one other piece, which is I would go ahead and schedule the TOC presentation now. You can even just do it as a pull request on CNCF/TOC. And then if you need to push it back, it's not a big deal.
Okay. Got it. Thank you, Dan. And Daniel, you were going to say something?
Oh, yeah, just to make a note about the suggestion to suggest edits rather than edit directly. That's probably a good thing to add in this, just so we have it recorded.
Yeah, okay. Hold on. Good call. Okay, actually, make it really explicit there, red.
I have a question. So when we present to the TOC meeting, what are we going to present? Are we going to have some slides, write some slides to present it? What is the key points we would like to present? Something, I mean, about this document or about future roadmap or directions?
So I would think it would be maybe 1 or 2 slides, just because slides are easy for people to look at. But yeah, I think it would be sort of a very high level summary of what we talked about in the white paper itself, but then, yeah, mainly focus on the recommended next steps more than anything else. But I think that's something that we should probably work on. I don't think we just have to discuss it right here. I'd like people to sort of think about it, and maybe we can talk about it on next week's call in terms of, in terms of the ideas of actually what we want to put forward. And I can even put together a straw man proposal for an outline of what we want to talk about. Whoa. Dan, I think that's coming from you. Dan, can you mute? Dan Pond? Okay, I'm gonna try to claim the host. Oh, I can't.
He was signed in as twice. That's why.
Probably that way? Oh, yeah,
he
maybe.
just transitioned phones, I guess.
Oh, weird. Okay.
So, Doug, what I was going to say is actually the last item in the agenda that we'll get to later. That could actually be the straw man for what you present to the DOC, which is this lightning talk that I have next week at Serverless Conf on kind of what we've been doing. So maybe that becomes the set of slides. I have 15 minutes to talk about what we've been doing. So we can kind of use that if it's the following week anyway.
Okay, so tell you what. Okay, let's hold off on the discussion about what we're going to present to the TOC until we get to that point in the agenda. But I think that's a good idea, Dan. So let's talk about the next thing, which is the eventing proposal. Now I know, no, he's not on the call. I was going to wonder if Euron's on the call to talk about his eventing stuff. But Austin, I know you're on the call.
Yep.
So I believe, actually, why don't you go ahead and talk about what you mentioned in Slack just a few minutes ago?
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. I'm Austin Collins. I'm a CEO and founder of Serverless.com and the Serverless application framework. For the past month, almost 2 months now, we've been working with a major cloud provider on a vendor-neutral standard for format for event data. And it's pretty exciting. And we're seeking the participation from some of the other major cloud vendors. And this is a very ambitious effort, but so far we've had a lot of interest. I think we have our second major cloud vendor joining us in about a week here, and about 4 other cloud vendors have expressed interest in participating. We're keeping the scope pretty small right now. We're just focused on this event data format, and we're going to actually submit a PR today with our initial proposal for this. And for clarity, this is not final. This is just a starting point of the conversation. But we love, broader comment from all the CNCF stakeholders. So look out for that. It's going to be PR to the CNCF Serverless Working Group repo. And in the meantime, our big priority is just to see if we can get alignment or the participation and alignment from some of these major cloud providers. So a lot of details like doing deep implementation dives and what it's called and what it ultimately ends up to be, we're kind of treating as secondary. Our first priority is just to see who we can get at the table and to see if we can get some significant influencers to collaborate on this. Because I think only if we could achieve that goal first will we be able to make a big impact here.
All right. Okay, I'm off mute. Any questions for Austin? Oops. Aside from me missing
yeah, is it really, Austin? How would you say it overlaps or complements or works with what Euron had put together in that document he put together?
It's pretty close. It's not far off. There's some different names, of course, for some of the properties in there, but it's pretty close. It's actually narrower in scope. It's became obvious the first day we started working on this with only 6 people in the room that we could go over these implementation details for 10 years. So we really trimmed it down and just said, and just put a quick version on it and decided just to take that and start bringing it to some of the other providers. So what we, so our PR that I'll submit today is going to be a bit smaller than even what Euron provided, but very similar.
Cool.
Cool. Excellent. Okay, and actually, I believe Euron is technically on vacation today, even though he was responding to my Slack request. So what I may do is have him, actually, let me ask the question. Do you guys want me to suggest that he submit his thing as a PR request as well? Or would you guys prefer to have Austin's go up there first and then have Euron perhaps make suggested changes to that proposal? I'm a little nervous both ways, right? I don't want to make it look like we're favoring one over the other because they both seem like valid ways forward. But at the same time, it'd be so much easier if we can get consolidation sooner rather than later. So any preferences on how we approach this?
I don't have any preference. Whatever you guys think is best.
Okay, tell you what, I'll let him make that decision then. And but you said you will submit the PR today, so chances are with him being on vacation, he won't submit any kind of PR until afterwards anyway. So we'll let him make that decision.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of similarities there. Some different names. It's smaller in scope, but I think they're overall pretty close.
Okay.
Austin, Dan here. I just want to say I'm very supportive of this effort. And so if there's, in particular, any introductions that I can do, and I guess more explicitly, if there's some specific cloud providers that you're just trying to get them to pay attention to this and state an opinion, please ping me, and I'm happy to help with that.
Will do, Dan, and appreciate your help. I actually had lunch with Chris on Monday, and he expressed the same. So
yeah.
Really appreciate the support. So far, we're having a lot of success, and I think it's because we're keeping the scope pretty small and tapping some of these big providers on the shoulder kind of early and getting them involved right away. So, but anyway, appreciate the support, and it's likely I might reach out to you at some point.
Great, thank you.
All right, cool. Anything else related to the eventing proposals? All right, man, you guys are really quiet today. All right, then last topic on the agenda is, Dan, you wanted to bring people up to speed on what you're doing for the Serverless conference. I think it was next week, right?
Yeah, there's another Serverless conf in New York next week. So I had submitted a couple months back, basically a work in progress. Just basically a snapshot, presenting a snapshot of what we were doing. So that was accepted, and it's a 15-minute lightning talk, so not too deep on the content. But basically, you can see the abstract I submitted. It's not in the public website agenda, but there it is, so you know what's involved and why I think it was interested to this audience. Obviously, they're interested in serverless, but specifically why they might be interested. So the goal there is basically to have all these other attendees aware of the work we've been doing, both with the working group and also the white paper, and to give them an idea of the actions that we plan to kind of go forward with from this group based on the conclusions in the white paper, and invite them to participate so that they can either join the working group or add their voice and share their experience, or provide explicit feedback on any of those things that we have in motion.
Okay, so Dan, when was it? I think it was last week. A folder was created in our GitHub repo for presentations for people to share. Maybe you can upload your presentation there, and then people can take a look at it. And next week we can decide whether we think that's a good starting point for the material we want to present to the TOC.
Okay, sounds good. At least I'll get a markdown of the outline in there, and then drop in the files when they're ready.
All right,
I tend to work on these things up until the very last minute. So
I'm shocked. No one does that. Okay.
I have a question here. So for the abstract, could you add Huawei? Because I'm working for Huawei, and Louis is also the author, also from Huawei. Yeah, we have made quite some contribution to this.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think they're making this abstract public on the website, so this is just the internal one. But when I create the slide mentioning the group, I'll definitely include the latest members that are listed in the white paper as contributors.
Okay.
All right. All right. Any questions or comments for Dan? All right. In that case, we're at the end of the agenda. Are there any other topics? Oh, yes. Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, I'm just I would just want to say that from the beginning, we were the authors. And actually, when we started the work group, I present together with, Mark and I think Doug, right? So I think why Huawei's name is not here. It's not like the latest we just joined.
Yeah, and I understand. It's just it was an just an overview. I just have added a couple of examples there, mainly thinking about the big service providers that people might know of as providing a commercial public service, but I totally get your point, and I'm going to add you in there. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, cool. Any other topics for discussion today? Going once?
Hey, Doug. Austin here again.
Yeah, hey.
Serverless Conf is coming up next week. I don't know who's going to be there, but I will be there if anyone wants to chat about the open events spec or anything.
Yeah, obviously Dan's going to be there. Or Daniel, sorry. Anybody else?
This is Mark Fisher from Pivotal. I'll be there.
Okay. Maybe you guys can sync up.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm actually, sorry, this is Dan Kahn. I'm actually in New York City, but I have to fly to China Tuesday for the Alibaba Cloud Conference. But Austin, if you want to get a cup of coffee Monday or anyone else, I'd be happy to do it.
Well, that sounds great. I have your email. I'll send you a note right after this.
Great.
Otherwise, if anyone wants to meet up, just ping me in the Serverless Slack, and would love to meet you.
Sounds good. All right. Any other topics people want to bring up? All right. In that case, just a little reminder, please, if you do get a chance, please review the document itself, but in particular the conclusion section sooner rather than later. Otherwise, I believe that's it for today. Thank you guys very much. We'll talk next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Doc, could you add my name in the attendees?
Yes, I'll do that, Kathy.
Okay, thank you.
I'll do that. Okay. Bye, guys.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.